Pay attention to what you're telling yourself in your head. Audit the lies and focus on loving yourself.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Welcome to What You Don't Hear. Toss in those headphones, pull up a seat. It's time to get to know somebody a whole lot better. This is a life podcast. It's an open journal dive into people's lives as I sit and I uncover the real story behind my guest journey, finding out what makes them who they are, talking about all the ups, all the downs, all those thoughts and feelings in between, as we dig into the parts of their story that we otherwise wouldn't get to hear. I'm your host. My name is Theisen. I'm a creative of many kinds, a maker of many things, sometimes maybe too many things. But hey, here is a reminder up front to make sure that you're subscribed to this show on whatever platform that you're checking this out on right here, right now. Whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, find that like or follow button and hit it for me if you would be so kind. And if you really like the show, and you want to make sure you don't miss any of it, you can follow us around social at WYDH Pod. And listen, I get it. You hear these things all the time from every creator, every single day, everywhere, on all the platforms. But we got to ask these things because it truly does help more than you may think. The support goes a really long way in helping me continue to make all of these creative endeavors happen. And speaking of support, I'm lucky enough to have some partners and supporters of this show in the form of sponsorships. So I've got a few of those to tell you about right now, and then we'll get into this week's conversation. Okay, so first up, this episode is sponsored in part by Promo West Productions. So if you live in or around the Columbus, Ohio area, and you want to go to a live show, you want to catch a live concert and go get that live music experience, well, then you may want to check out one of these upcoming concerts coming your way via Promo West. They've got Tony Romiti at Newport Music Hall on November 21st. Then The Story So Far comes to Kemba Live on Saturday, November 23rd. Then It's In This Moment at Kemba Live on Saturday, November 30th. And then The Ghost Inside plays at Newport Music Hall on Friday, December 13th. So if you want to grab tickets to any of those shows, all you got to do is jump to AXS.com, or as always, for more information on any of those or any other upcoming concerts. If you want to know who's coming to town and when, well, you can find all the info you need over at promowestlive.com, or just go follow them at Promo West Live. And also, here's a little reminder, too, to keep your eyes peeled on the podcast social at WYDH Pod, because relatively often I'm teaming up with Promo West to give away free tickets to a lot of shows that they produce and bring into town. So make sure to follow us at WYDH Pod and keep your eyes out for a way to win some free tickets to one of these shows potentially at any point in time. And of course, I thank them so very much for sponsoring this episode. This episode is also brought to you in part by Makers Social. Now, Makers is located right over in the Franklinton Arts District, right here in Columbus, Ohio, the place where this podcast used to call home. Now, why I'm stoked to have Makers on board as a partner and a sponsor for this episode is, well, it's owned and operated by friend of the show and past guest, Meg Pando, and you can go check out her story, her podcast episode, anytime in the archives. That's back on episode 46. But she is a wonderful person, and Makers is a wonderful place. So, what is it? Well, Maker Social is a DIY craft project bar where you can get your hands messy with some fun projects like woodworking, leatherworking, jewelry making, painting, and more. And while you do all of this, you can drink if you want, because they also have a fully loaded bar with cocktails, local beers, and a very rare bourbon list for you bourbon collectors out there. So what's more fun than getting your craft on with some friends or family, while also maybe getting your drink on as well for a night out. And they also host private group events, such as corporate events for team building and even birthdays. So if you want to check it out, if you want to go book and make a reservation, well, you can just hop over to their website. And if you do book, right now you can type in WYDH into the notes section of your checkout when you make the reservation to get $10 off your project's booking. So head to makerscolumbus.com if you want to check it out, or simply follow them to see what they're all about at makers.social. All right, let's get into this week's episode because it is another awesome conversation I get to share with you this week. My next guest is Melissa Blackburn. She is a business coach as well as one of the co-owners and creators of the Haven Collective, which are a set of co-working spaces located here in Columbus, Ohio. I feel like I've been somewhat repeating myself lately when I introduce these episodes at the start here, because they've all been literally just so good. And I feel like I just keep saying that over and over, and they're filled with so many gems. But listen, this one is no different. This conversation with Melissa absolutely rules. We talk so much about small business practices, what it's like in the entrepreneurial world in general, what Melissa has learned from not just her own path of going from working for others to working for herself, but also what she's learned from coaching and working alongside so many other small business owners. And how the idea, of course, we dive into how the idea of opening a co-working space and private office space, how that even came to fruition, and so much more. We just cover a lot of really great stuff in this one. So, I don't know. Of course, hosting this interview, I directly got a lot of good stuff from this one as well. But I feel like if you're someone who is in somewhat of a, position of a bit of a career change or pivot or growth that you're going through, kind of like myself at the moment, or if you're just wanting to get your business plan or idea started or whatever the case may be in that realm, there is so much good stuff shared in this one from Melissa that will definitely leave you with a spark of motivation after this episode ends. At least that's how I personally felt after this one, but I have a good feeling that you will too. So there was only, of course, one way to find out if it'll work for you too. So let's just dive in. This is episode 122 of What You Don't Hear with my guest, Melissa Blackburn. Otherwise, I think we are ready to go.
Let's do this.
Do want to dive into something right off the bat that I'm very interested in.
Oh.
Have I seen it correctly? Unless it was, I was imagining it. You do CrossFit?
I do. I do.
Okay. I'm asking because I also do CrossFit.
No way.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. How did we get this far into the conversation without mentioning it already?
I know,
I mean,
right?
because if you do CrossFit, everyone has to know.
Now, see, what I've actually noticed about that is, I don't know what it's like for you. I've actually noticed when you do CrossFit, other people point out that you do CrossFit far more than you ever bring it up.
Yeah. I'm like, do you want to do CrossFit with me? No. I just wanted to point out that you do CrossFit.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, it's crazy that you do it. It's like, yeah. No, it's been a big part of my life for the last, 3.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
For me, it's been I'm coming up on 2 years.
Nice.
And it has facilitated so much positive change in my life.
Yeah.
I've just gotten so much more out of it than I expected.
1,000,000%.
Yeah.
That was, obviously, you start going to any gym or anything to, get yourself into shape and get some things under control and whatever. But that, I feel like I can attest to the cliche, gym family and all that sort of stuff that everybody talks about all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
There was talk of me leaving CrossFit for a minute, and I couldn't do it because I love everybody there so much. They're my friends.
Yep. That's 100%.
And it's addicting. It's such good. Obviously, it's just good for your body to move that way. But I think that it gets a bad rap because of how hard it can be on your body. So for a while, I was thinking about taking some time off, and I just couldn't do it. I kept getting drawn back in because of my friends. I just have to see how everyone's doing.
Well, that's one of the number one things that I'm sure you also hear is people are like, isn't that crazy and really hard? And you're doing backflips on a gymnastics bar. It's like,
yeah, but you're doing backflips on a gymnastics floor. You're so badass.
And it's for me, I'm like, man, you only do what you're actually capable of. You're never walking into a CrossFit gym or really any good gym necessarily, and no coach or trainer or anybody is like, okay, well, it says we're lifting 135 today for these power cleans, and if you can't do it, well,
leave.
You're just doing it because that's the way it's written on the board. It's like, no, that doesn't happen. It's like I think that's one of the coolest things that I learned, because it's not, when you're on the outside. And again, this goes for not just CrossFit, but probably any gym. When you're on the outside, you don't really think about scaling anything. You just are like, I can't do that. So then that's scary for me and I can't go do it.
Well, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I feel so passionate about this point. When I started CrossFit, I felt like when I walked in, I was the oldest person in the room. I was the least athletic. I'm not kidding that I cried probably every day leaving the gym for about 2 weeks. It was one of the harder things that I ever forced myself to do. Mm-hmm. And it was intentional.
Yep.
You know, I just kept telling myself, like, yeah, it's going to suck and you're going to do it anyway. And it was such a part of my journey to get more disciplined, to have more, to renew my faith in myself, mm-hmm. to get past this, like, I'm over 40, who do I think I am? Like, it was so uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And I look back and I'm like, dang it, I did it. And I kept coming back and I kept doing it. And the pride I have internally just for what I overcame and all the voices that I shut up by going back, like, I'm just so thankful that I did it.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm sure people hear it all the time of, like, the major benefit of going to the gym isn't necessarily just the physical. A lot of it's the mental. Mm-hmm. And mm-hmm. like, I can 100% attest to, like, I went through the exact same thing where the amount of self-confidence and self-belief that doing that has instilled in me, uh-huh. genuinely, I can directly see over the last 3 years, I have formed into the most confident version of myself.
Oh, I love hearing that. That's so awesome.
It's not because I'm like, oh, I'm the smartest, the fastest, the strongest, the whatever. None of that. It's because I've now on a nearly 5 to 6 day a week basis mm-hmm. for 3.5 years challenged myself mm-hmm. every single day. I've done realistically just about the hardest, at least physical thing each day at the gym, right? I'm challenging myself in that way. You build so much self-belief and so much self-confidence. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, wow, like, I can do this for myself and I can do hard things. And cool, that does translate into so many other things. When I first started, my initial battle was, and when I tell people this, obviously you do CrossFit, so you understand it. When I tell non-CrossFitters, non-gym goers, they're like, oh my God, see, that's why I wouldn't go. It's crazy. But for my first 2 or 3 weeks, was I threw up almost after every class.
Wow. You went for it.
Just about everyone. But here's the thing, is that when people hear that, they're like, see, I knew it was hard and crazy. And the thing is, I was scaling all of the workouts. I was not doing hard and crazy things.
Yeah.
If we had a workout of, like, wall ball squats, not even the full wall ball.
Yeah.
And, like, running a few meters on a treadmill or something like mm-hmm. that, right? Doing that would cause me to throw up.
You just had a low baseline to start, yeah.
My body was just kind of in shock because mm-hmm. it was like, we know we've been needing this. Because, like, I will genuinely say, like, what made me start going to the gym was, like, I honestly felt like my body was, like, screaming at me.
Yes.
To go and move.
For me, just to put a point on that, is after COVID, I felt so blessed that I was so healthy and I was given this body, and I felt like, who am I to just, like, not steward this gift, to go and make the most of it and get as strong as I can and be as healthy as I can be. And, like, mm-hmm. I just, like, really got through something so tough on luck. Let me not test fate again and want to get healthy. So I thought I was healthy until I stepped in that CrossFit gym, and then it kind of handed me my ass. I was like, woo.
Yeah. And
you are not.
Yeah. And mine was a bit of the opposite. Like, I was going into it knowing, I was like, I feel that I am so unhealthy. And, I was very unhappy with, like, my body image at that point in time. Like, and again, we're always the harshest on ourselves. Like, I was like, I'm overweight, and mm-hmm. effectively, that's a bit of a stretch to say. Like, I wasn't, right? But, I definitely had more weight on me. I definitely was chubbier. And at that point in time, I literally was just like, man, like, I feel like my body is yelling at me. I don't like the way I look. I don't like the way I feel. And going in there and doing that, my body was like, oh, okay, we're doing the thing now. Yeah, we're going to get sick after almost every one of these. Where, like, my main goal for the workouts was just to get through them at that point.
Uh-huh.
It was like with my head coach, it was like, he was like, okay. He was like, I don't want you to focus on, we're not going to be worried about weights. We're not going to be worried about times, rounds, reps, anything. Uh-huh. He's like, our goal is you're going to do this workout and you're not going to get sick. That's the goal. That is literally the goal. So if you get 2 rounds into a 5-round workout and you start to feel sick, we're done. Let's slow it down. We're fine. Do a cool down and you're good.
Nice. That's like, a good coach.
That's
a really good coach.
Our goal is to just, let's ease you into this to where then when we start getting through all 5 rounds of a workout, right, a month in or whatever, and we're not feeling sick and we're holding it off, then cool, we've got some progress there. Then we can really start focusing on like, what weight are we doing? How many rounds and reps are we really get it? All that sort of stuff. So my first few weeks, doing CrossFit and going to a gym, it was absolutely a challenge. And you said the discipline thing too, where I also had to learn how to build a discipline. We were talking a little bit before we recorded of, people don't, we're very prone to say we want to do a thing and we don't really put the effort in to do it. And that was one of my biggest things I had to learn, was to rediscipline my life to build it more around the gym, to make sure I could include going and working out, because that's one of the easiest things to say is either getting started working out or trying to get started in general is like, I don't have the time. That's the biggest thing.
No, you don't make the time.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was my thing. Like literally, I went to the gym for 3 days one week, and like I'm totally self-employed, so my schedule is all over the place. Yeah. And I was letting it be all over the place. So I was like, I didn't go to the gym again for another week.
Yeah, you can't do that. And it's like, you lose gains. You just you start from scratch.
No progress.
But I think something that's really interesting about what you said, and I loved your coach's approach, was setting an attainable goal as what to focus on, because I can't tell you how many conversations I have throughout the week where I see other entrepreneurs just putting so much on their plate, and my encouragement is always, wait. What is like the next thing that you can accomplish? Because if you have this huge list of what you want to do and you go to bed without doing it, you feel like a failure. Why don't we pick the one thing? Why don't we make small, tiny, incremental gains and let that feel good?
Exactly.
And so I love that it was like, don't get sick this time. Okay, now make it through the whole thing. Okay, now add some weight. That became such a metaphor for my life that my schedule as an entrepreneur has now been, I will not commit to more than 3 things a day.
Yeah.
Will not. And I mean, one of those things can be, I got to get the dishes done. Will not commit to more than 3. I think that is perfectly, I know it's perfectly acceptable for me. I have won the day if I keep 3 promises to myself, because it's how I love myself. It's how I know that when I say I'm going to do something, I really think about it. And if I say yes, it's a hard yes. Like I do what I say I'm going to do. And I think that is the really underlying confidence that started with CrossFit. It has like permeated throughout everything in my life. It's just this integrity, but for myself, just knowing that when I say, this is what my day is going to look like, this is how it's going to go, this is how I'm going to eat, this is how I'm going to take care of myself, this is how I'm going to show up. It's brought a lot of peace to trust myself in that way.
100%. Like that was one of the biggest things that I feel like I unlocked about building that discipline of, again, initially going to the gym. It was, I went a couple times, missed a week, went a couple more times, missed a handful of more days. And it wasn't until I told myself, this isn't going to work unless I start building my schedule around going to the gym. So then I shifted it to, okay, every day I'm going at this time, or whatever days I was, I started with like 3 days or whatever. 3 days a week, I'm going to the gym at this time. Yeah. So I am to schedule meetings or whatever before or after that time. That's what is happening. And everything that you're saying is like keeping that promise to yourself allows you to build that foundation, to build that discipline off of, to then build the consistency off of, to where then you don't even have to think about it. To where now, 3.5 years in, obviously I guess that's some time, but like I've effectively kind of trained everyone in my life to know when I'm available.
Yep.
Right?
Same.
Like my video business partner, he'll hit me up about something of whether it's I guess usually shoots are an all day thing, but more so maybe meetings or something like that we need to do. And he'll say, okay, you're free starting at like 1, right?
Yeah.
You're free starting at 2, right? Or you're free at 10, right? Because he knows I usually go in the middle of the day. And so it's like, oh, wow, like that discipline has also spread out into respect from peers.
Yes.
Where they understand, hey, sorry, I can't do it at that time because I'm going to the gym. How do you argue that?
Yeah, my friends, if they listen to this, will laugh, because everybody knows if you want to hang out with me Tuesday night or Thursday night after 6:30, like that is it. My husband knows he's in charge of the kids those nights. I have my late night at the gym. All my friends know if they want to hang out, you know, you don't have to worry about what date. It's a Tuesday or a Thursday. Just tell me which one.
Right.
Like, that's when I'm hanging out.
Yep.
Like, I've already built it into my schedule.
Yep. Something you said in there that I really, really love is basically making a promise to yourself to win the day. Mm-hmm. And like, I love that idea of figuring out like how do you win your day? And so for you, I also really love that you said, I keep 3 promises to myself. Mm-hmm. Is that a daily like routine that you have now of like...
I'll go through on a Sunday night and I plan out my week. I am not as regimented as like going to the same exact slot every day to the gym, but you know, I look at my meetings and what needs to happen, and I first say, here's when I'm going to the gym. I schedule everything around it, and then I literally put 1, 2, 3 on each day of my calendar. Put 3, and the night before I fill in those 3 blanks. Like, what do I feel like is slipping? Like, could I look around my house and be like, wow, it's like a bomb went off. We got to do some laundry, got to do some, grocery shopping, whatever. Like, that'll go in there. Oh, you know, my kid seemed a little sassier day than normal. You know, one of my promises is like spending some extra time at bedtime tonight and just really being present with my kid. Like, it gives me an opportunity to take inventory of all the areas of my life and put it down as like an actual goal to look out for the parts that are important, not just like the work thing that needs to get done.
Yeah, I might steal that.
Do it.
Try
yeah.
to, like, I love the idea of writing down 3 promises to keep to yourself every day. Like,
I mean, that's not like, there's no rhyme or reason. It's just kind of like, what am I feeling is a little chaotic. And then I need to like, oh man, I'm feeling stressed about money. I need to work on my bills tomorrow. Okay. Like, go through your spreadsheet tomorrow, pay some bills, you know, like I just try and intuitively feel like what is off.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's so hard for a lot of us because to me, that sounds like keeping yourself present. It's like, it's both planning ahead, but also it's like, what am I feeling right now? What's something that needs addressed? What can I take care of? Like, do you feel like it's hard for a lot of people to find that like ability? And again, this is more of like a question that I'm like, I think we both know the answer.
We know
but I still want to hear your thoughts on.
We're all numbing, you know. We're all scrolling, or you know, we got the busy badge, or we have to work, or we have all these things we have to do that are really just a Band-Aid to like, whoa, like what is going on up here? Like, what am I reacting to? Like, so going back to your question, which I forgot.
It's based around the idea of being present. Of just
I think if you're just constantly numbing yourself, like if you're not even paying attention to your own habits and what you do to escape and ask yourself, why am I doing this? Like, that's step 1 of being present. You know, like, why is it that I feel the need to watch 3 hours of Netflix every night? Like, is there something I am avoiding? Is there something I could be doing? And it's not like you have to be productive at all times. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But it's like just taking stock. Am I doing this because like I have been busy? I'm a little burnt out. I'm going to relax right now. Or is there stuff I'm avoiding and it's just too overwhelming to deal with it? Like, if I can answer that question, that usually helps me like snap into the moment.
Yeah. So we were talking about good CrossFit coaching earlier. Uh-huh. You are an entrepreneur coach. You coach business owners.
I do.
Yes?
I do.
So I'm assuming a lot of this stuff is stuff that you were talking about on a weekly, if not daily basis at this point with many people. Like,
and you know, I used to work in corporate and I managed big teams. And so a lot of this came into discussions in corporate as well, but it became especially impactful when working with people who own their own schedule. You know, like, wait a minute, we actually do need to build some like parameters and some ways for you to have structure when no one's looking over you. So I was able to apply a lot of what I used in big business, if you will, to entrepreneurship, mostly because I had to figure it out for myself. I figured out what worked, and through having really deeper conversations with the entrepreneurs that work out of my co-working space, I realized like nobody's having these talks. Nobody's being real about the fact that like you want all of this for your life and your business, but there's no structure around how you're making it happen. And there's accountability coaches and business coaches and all of that. But I think I know what I like best about my work with people is that I teach them the discipline of business. Mm-hmm. You know, I teach them to respect their money and their numbers. And I take the fear out of how to read a profit and loss statement or a cash flow document, or, you know, like it just becomes a conversation, and it just becomes, why haven't you looked at this? What are you scared of? Why are you avoiding this? Why isn't this a part of your routine? Okay, let's get underneath that. Where do you want it to be? And that's a numbers game. And when you take the fear out of it and you have someone there, like your friend holding your hand, walking you through it, you feel less isolated, you feel more motivated to do it. From my side of the table, it's so awesome to be able to support people in that way, because I felt alone and scared when I was doing it and I didn't really have anyone. So it's been nice for it to morph into me being able to help others.
Yeah, I feel like that has been one of my favorite things that, obviously everybody has different levels of like what success actually looks like and all this sort of stuff. And by no means am I like, yep, at the top of my whatever, but it's like being able to look back on 10 years of navigating freelance and entrepreneurship and all this sort of stuff. That truly is one of my favorite things now, where I'm like, I don't want to keep any secrets. Yeah. Let me share whatever I can with somebody else to potentially help them in some way, whether it's on the creative side, the business side, the human side of like, hey, when I was going through this thing, this is like, I love sharing a lot of those things. Like for you, I'm assuming the trajectory was Haven, and then you got into like coaching other businesses, or what's the timeline like there?
So I have my MBA, so I have, a particular set of skills. And I was operating as a chief operating officer of a tech company. So I have quite a bit of business acumen that I bring to the table. And it was like my bet on me when I opened Haven, like, okay, let's see if I can actually do this. And I wasn't alone. I had Danielle, my business partner, and I opened. And during the time of opening, I was able to dip my toe in helping people with more structured business conversations, like helping them. I'm not a CPA or an accountant, but like helping them look at their numbers, helping them look at their business plans, helping them, and Danielle too was helping them look at like branding and marketing stuff and just using like our MBAs to help people. And then over time, I realized like I could be a little bit more human about it, because I'm not just a coach telling you what to do, like I'm actually living it also, which makes it pretty different. I think a lot of business coaches have the business of their coaching business.
Yeah.
They don't have an actual brick and mortar that they're running with members and metrics and KPIs and all these things. And so like as I felt more confident and successfully ran it for years, I was able to really approach it from a personal and professional angle.
Yeah. So I want to know the story of like, how do you go from working in just quote unquote corporate, to then, okay, I'm going to start this thing called Haven, and I'm going to make a co-working space. Like, what's that story?
Well, I'm kind of, corporate would be a strong word for what I did. I worked in startup world. I've always wanted to work, right alongside the CEO. I will take it all the way back to my first job out of college. I was lucky that during college I worked at Johnson & Johnson as a co-op. So I got like firsthand experience into corporate. I went to Rutgers in New Jersey, and on Rutgers campus as the majority of the headquarters for Johnson & Johnson. So I would like go to work at J&J, leave, go take a class, come back. Like I got really good exposure to corporate for 2 to 3 years while in college. And I wanted no part of it. So found a job at a small marketing startup, a tech marketing startup in New York. I was so excited working in New York, my first job. And I got lucky to work as the right-hand person to the CEO and COO. And unbeknownst to me, they were poising the company for a sale. So I got to go to like every meeting with them and got the inside scoop. And actually, the COO has written several books on mergers and acquisitions. He's like an expert. And he would make me write essays. Every Friday, I had to turn in an essay to him. And one would be, more business focused. And one would be like just an opinion piece. He felt very strongly that I needed to have writing skills. He was an author, and that's how he made his name. So he really coached me through my business writing. And then there was the CEO, who was equally as passionate about numbers and me understanding the financials. And he would sit down with me and like go over things and ask me questions. And what do you think? And what occurs to you when you look at this? Like, I could not have landed 2 better mentors to look out for me. And side note, my second day of work was 9/11.
Oh, wow.
And I was a block away from the tower, or a mile away from the tower. So like within 17 blocks.
Wow.
So the three of us went through like a traumatic event together, and I feel like we were bonded. And so here I am, this like young girl, my first job. They're looking out for me. We've just experienced this very scary event together, and for 3 years working with them, they just made sure that they kept nothing from me. Like I was in the meeting taking notes, but what would happen when everyone left the room is they'd close the door and be like, okay, what'd you think? What do you think of that person? What do you think of what they said? What is your idea here? Like they just really respected my opinion. And it was an incredible experience. So when they sold the business to a company here in Columbus, Ohio, they got a huge payout, but behind closed doors, sung my praises to everyone. And I ended up basically taking over all of operations when the company sold. I was like 27. I'm like, what am I doing?
Wow.
Like everybody was, twice my age. I was like flying all over the country, managing New York, Philly, Boston, Atlanta. I had no idea what I was doing. I was scared shitless. But they had really built such a practice in me of being curious and questioning and being humble and showing up ready to ask everyone else what they thought and being supportive. So it worked. It worked for a while. And then the company here in Columbus asked me to move here. And I was like, Columbus, Ohio? From like New York, Philly, Boston, Atlanta? Really?
Yeah.
Okay, let me give this a try. So I came here, and the first night they put me up in a hotel over by that concrete cornfield. Yes. And I remember calling my mom, and I was like, there's no way. Like the biggest building I saw on the drive here was like 5 stories high.
The corn isn't real.
What is there to do? She goes, I know, honey. Open the phone book. Usually there's stuff to do if you like look in the front of the phone book. And that's my mom. I open it up, and like the first ad was for like a doll museum.
Incredible. Okay.
And I lost my mind. Wow. I just started like, what am I doing here? This is an awful decision. And so anyway, I digress. So I go into work the first day, and there was a very attractive man there who's now my husband. And he showed me around the company, and it was like, he was like the only other young person that worked there. And he was just so kind and so helpful. I had a boyfriend, he had a girlfriend. There was nothing more to it than that. But, he gave me like a glimmer of hope that like, okay, maybe people here are normal. I could probably do this.
He hasn't started showing me dolls yet. So.
Right. He seems normal.
Yeah.
So I was traveling to Columbus Monday through roughly like Friday morning. And like, I lived in corporate housing here, and I would just like go back and forth. So for a year I was doing that until the company was like, well, you have to make a decision. Are you going to move here? What are you going to do? I was supposed to go to NYU for grad school, and I was like, all right, I'm going to apply to Ohio State and just see what happens. And I ended up getting into Ohio State and decided to stay here. Went there for my MBA. This is a very long story.
Nope.
This is okay.
It's also great. I tell people this all the time. This is the place for long stories.
Okay.
It is perfectly fine.
I'm trying to edit as I go. But so funny enough, I mean, I just truly, truly in my heart know that every single thing, everything, good, bad, everything that happens to me is for my purpose. I just know it in my soul. Even when something bad happens, I always pause and I'm like, okay, what is this preparing me for? Always. I walk into Ohio State orientation night, and who do I meet? The very first person I met, my business partner, Danielle. I looked at her, she was the only other woman in the room, and I was like, we're gonna be friends. You and me. We gotta stick to it. We gotta stick together. And that was it. We've been best friends ever since. So, right? So crazy how it all works.
Yeah.
So when I started at Ohio State, it was very clear that my husband and I were meant to be together. I quit my job because we were not allowed. But at the time, well, by that point, he had broken up with his girlfriend. I had broken up with my boyfriend. We were not allowed to date. It was a company policy. And I was like, this is insane. Like, this is my lobster. He's my person. So I quit my job, went to a startup called 2Checkout, which is a payment processing plugin for websites to accept payments. Took a chance, went there to work in sales and get my MBA while I was doing that. When I started, fairly a decent sized company, but I think we were processing like 100 million or something when I started. Worked with them for 7 years and built us up to 350 million. We were able to sell for a huge multiple. We got very, very good price. I had worked my way up to chief operating officer. Got my MBA, got married, did all of it. Then the company that acquired our company came in and they also had a chief operating officer. So here we are, right? I will never forget the day that I was sitting in my office and two of the executives, the COO being one of them and whatever the other guy's title was, maybe CTO or something, walks in the room and they say to me, thinking it's a very, I don't know if they thought it was a compliment, we've been talking and we can't decide which one of us you're going to assist, which one of us you're going to be the assistant for. And I looked at both of them and I didn't even think. I said, I'm not going to assist either of you. I helped build this company to where it is. You can have it. I called Danielle and I was like, we're pulling the trigger. Like, this is it. Like, we're starting a business. I can't let somebody else determine my worth anymore. Like, this will not be my reality.
Yeah.
Like, you don't work 7 years to get a company to there, go through everything we went through, the ups, the downs, the multiple CEOs, the drama, like all of it, for somebody to walk in and say, which of us are you going to assist? No. So that is how, in that instant, I decided I was opening a business. And Danielle and I were at dinner one night. She was working from home and she had been trying out all the different co-working spots and coffee shops, and she hated them all. Like, there was just no connection, no warmth. And she said, I heard this really interesting thing on NPR about co-working spaces that have childcare in them. And I had just had my second kid and I was like, holy shit, that is the most genius thing I've ever heard. We're doing that. That's what we're doing. And I still have the napkin. And we started like sketching it all out. And we like shut down that restaurant and went to another restaurant and continued. And we had, like, by the end of the night, Danielle was calling her husband of like, I think she'd only been married like 4 months. And she's like, I'm so sorry, honey. I think I just started a business with Mel. Like,
That's the coolest thing.
I think we just started a business. And yeah, and we were off to the races. And that night I had mentioned to her, there's this building I keep driving by. It's so cool. It's sitting vacant. Like, have your brother-in-law look into it. He's a real estate agent. Have your brother-in-law look into it. So she called him. We had like a tour. I think it was like a Thursday night that we had this conversation. By Tuesday, we were touring the building. By Thursday, we had an offer on it. And by like a month later, we owned it.
That's so sick.
Like, it happened so fast to the point where, like, I remember sitting in the building just by myself, just empty in the building after all of like just everything that had happened and just being like, what have I done? Oh my gosh. Like, now I have no choice. Like, now I've done it. Like, got to prove it. Ooh, was that a long and winding enough story for you?
No, that was amazing. That was the best way to lay all that out and set that up. No, that's incredible. Like, something I've been curious of this entire time is like, where did the like, I guess I'll ask a very general question, and obviously you'll take it where it's like, well, no, that's incorrect, or yeah, no, this is where it started. Like, has this like, I'll just say entrepreneurial spark, like, always been something in you, or was it like so you could identify even like a long time ago it was like, oh, I'm a little bit of a self-starter, like I want to kind of in the right ways like take control of my own destiny effectively, and like I've always kind of had these like ideas and go-getter attitude and stuff.
Well,
like,
I've never been controllable, and I used to, as a kid, that was a bad thing. My parents were very strict, but as I grew up, I realized like, no, like this is just who I am. Like, I can't, I would be the worst employee now. Like, I can't be employed.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off. I literally was talking with somebody the other day, actually on this show for an episode, about how we both were like, I think I'm kind of unemployable now.
Yes, totally.
Like, I've gotten to a point where it's like, I would effectively be like the best employee, having all the knowledge of being able to kind of like self-manage and do a lot of things, but also the need to be ungovernable, basically, of like, no, I need to be able to do my own thing, and I could probably be in charge of this thing, so let me just do my own thing.
Right,
like,
right.
Sorry to cut you off.
No, you didn't cut me off. Well, my dad always owned his own business, and, you know, there was just always struggle there. And so my two sisters shied away from it. They were like, we don't want that life. Like, there's too much risk. And I was always just fascinated by it. Like, what do you mean you could do whatever you want, like, in the middle of the day? What do you mean you could just decide you want to, like, now you want to open a restaurant? You just go do it. You know, I just always, and that's what my dad did. Like, he had a lot of lives as an entrepreneur, and, you know, he's like our phoenix. He always rises from the ash. There's always, you know, a lesson in there. But I was drawn to it. I just was intrigued by the growth that came from it, and by the pick yourself up by your bootstraps and get it done. And my grandfather also, not his dad, but my mom's dad, he was also self-employed. And I just thought it was really cool that no one could tell them what to do. So it was always in me. It was always in me. And I felt like, given that first work experience I told you about, and then working for the startup, I had very good experiences, like kind of running my own thing in those environments. I never felt like I was being managed. But like the minute I felt like someone was going to try and put their finger on me and manage me, I was out.
Yeah. I am and have always been the same way. Like, even at times when I was younger, and even if I didn't always know exactly what I wanted to do, right? I wasn't like even operating with like, no, I need the name tag of this at a workplace. Right. I need to own my own. I still always knew, like, for me, it spawned from creativity. And then as you get older, you kind of understand like how creativity can be infused into business and what you can do to turn art into something or an idea. And, you know, because like art as a kid was like my thing. That was like, I've always been really good at drawing. So like that was like the thing that made me really cool as a kid, right? Yeah. But with that comes telling stories, and I would always like build these like little fake brands for all the things that I would come up with.
So you knew from a young age.
Yes. And what that then turned into is like, I guess the best way I can describe it now is like there's this balance of like free whimsicalness inside me where I'm like, no, I just want to create and storytell and connect with people for just, that's just what I want to do every day, do whatever I want. And there's the other side of me that is like that like stern business person that's also tucked in there of like, no, I also want to build a business and build a brand and like people better understand what I'm trying to do. Like, I feel like I've got 50-50 of those things, but what that does is effectively mesh into a somewhat uncontrollable being, I feel like, in the sense of being hired by somebody else, because it's not that I can't be a part of a team and help play my position. Like, absolutely love collaboration. I can do that. But I'm also very like, I notice when I feel like things are stupid really quickly, you know, so, and I'm sure
the BS meter goes up. Yes.
And I'm sure you can very much attest to, especially working in like startup culture and all this sort of, and I'm sure every, you know, for every positive interaction you've had with the owner of a business, I'm sure you've had one where you're like, what are you even thinking right now? Yeah. So being a self-employed freelancer for the last 10 years, I've had more than my fair share of conversations where I'm like, man, it's not that I know what's better for you, but it's just that I have a different perspective that you're not even willing to acknowledge. And you're so stuck in your bubble right now. And so that's what's become hard, where even right now in my life in general, I'm trying to really reevaluate where I really want to position myself in the world of creative business. Because I'm like, man, 10 years of being a freelancer and just kind of having 100 different bosses at 100 different times that some effectively are great to work with. Many have been lackluster to work with, very truthfully. And so I'm like, man, like, I've been my own boss for 10 years, but also kind of under the thumb, like we were saying, of
your client is your boss.
Yes. And I'm like, man, I do think there needs to be a bit of a pivot where it's like, I think I've really, really identified after being in the trenches for so long that I think it's time to really nail down a couple things of, no, it's time for you to just be in full control of your things. Completely of what you do, whether it's really, really building out a brand, really, really focusing on some of these ideas and stuff that you've been like slowly working on to effectively get rid of clients.
Oh, firing clients is my favorite. It is my favorite because it is another way that you bet on yourself. It is another way that you commit to the energy that you want in your life.
Yeah.
And first of all, 10 years, that's a big deal that you've been doing this for 10 years. Congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
We were talking earlier about me doing business coaching, and it used to be that I took anyone and everyone, and now I am very careful because I do think that, you know, who you're around and who you spend time with, it can really like rub off on you. And
It's sum of 5 theory, right?
Yes. And, you know, if I have a client who isn't going to do the work, who isn't going to, you know, just going to come in and tell the same story to themselves week after week after week, like it gets to the point where I can't help you anymore. And I'm sure you have experienced that with clients. And I would encourage you to shed those that are not aligned, because they will find people who are better aligned with them and what they need. And it'll leave space for you to find people that really excite you.
Yeah.
I think you probably are past this, but a lot of people have the fear like, oh, but I need the money, I need the clients, I need this. But you're not, if you cling, you're not making space for what is possible. So, do it.
Yeah, no, and I love hearing that. And that is that exact trajectory of, you know, for a while the chase was like, how can I be a freelancer? How can I be self-employed? And how can I make this sustainable? So like that, you know, there's like a solid handful of years. I would say probably half of that 10 was realistically like, is this still working this week? Okay, right. Let's keep it going, right?
Yeah.
And then that latter half really has been the identifier of, what do I even want to be working right now?
Yeah.
Right? And yes, we all need money. We all have to pay bills. There is absolutely, of course, no denying that. But now everything is at a point where it's like, man, like, I'm using a lot of these skills and this energy that I love to use, but am I effectively wasting it? Am I somewhat wasting this energy and these skills that I've built and developed on, I don't want this to sound so negative, but on entities and people that effectively do not respect the process in the first place, right?
Oh.
They just need the gap filled. It just needs to be your insert photographer, video director, social media manager, whatever.
Yeah.
You're that. I need that. Cool, let's do it. And can I just pay you like just enough? Like,
just
that'd
enough.
be great,
Right.
And to where I'm like, man, like I know that, you know, back to even the confidence building thing, right? We talked about this at the start with, you know, the gym and building confidence. It's like, I feel like, again, a lot of that confidence that I've built in the last 3.5 years has begun to magnify a lot of those things that effectively drain me in ways that I didn't know drained me before, because it was a part of the process, right? It was, I need to be a freelancer. I need to be self-employed. So we got to do this, right?
Yeah.
I've always been relatively good at making sure, you know, hey, if this is clearly a bad client, we're not doing this.
Yeah.
But even the quote unquote good clients really nailing down, is this actually good for me outside of the pay, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm also in a position of life where, you know, I've got a lot of the self-confidence. I've got a lot of creative fulfillment. Like I've never been more in tune with my ideas and all this sort of stuff. Like I will confidently say I'm very good at a lot of the things I do. So I know I can do them. I believe in myself to like make the idea, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I've got all of this clarity, and even in personal life, like it's never been more positive, right? So what that's now done, though, is show me the gap between all of this that's good, and now I'm noticing what's bad. And what's bad is the fact that I'm being tied down by working with clients. Where, again, before, everything was kind of a jumbled mess of, you know, trying to figure life out in general. So I couldn't really pinpoint many things. It was like, oh, well, I need to work on my confidence here, and I'm sad that I'm not in a relationship over here, and I'm working on that. And now that like all of these things have really been resolved, I'm now seeing, okay, what have we not checked off the list and been able to take care of here and get under control? And wow, it's, you know, I'm having, to be just fully blunt, I'm having a lot of kind of dumb conversations with some clients here about things that shouldn't be that difficult. Because again, where my brain has for some reason always operated is in like a marketing and a branding sense. And I'm not saying I'm a genius by any means. There's a lot of stuff about business that I do not get.
That's most of us, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
But there's a lot that I do, right?
Yeah.
I know how to really build a brand. Like I can do a lot of those things. And what I'm noticing is I'm like, man, like, again, I've developed these skills and these understandings, but no one is willing to grow with me.
Growth was like the number one thing that kept going through my head as you were saying that. Like, I wonder if you're feeling drained because you're not going after new things, like, you know, building a new skill, doing a new challenge, doing something that you're not sure you can do. You know, it's often I find in creatives, they love to start new things. Mm-hmm. They love to start new things. They get very bored with repetition and the mundane, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's just like part of the personality. And to them, I always say, like, okay, how do you approach it in a way that's, I'm ready for my next challenge. Mm-hmm. I'm ready for my next challenge. You know, see through what you promised and what you started. But once you've kind of got that down and you've built that skill and you feel confident, where's your next challenge?
Yep. And that, I think that exact thing when it comes to what I'll call like career and client work is the transition, right? Because like a thing I say on this podcast probably way too much is I focus heavily on fulfillment. That's like my number one word now, right? Mm-hmm. And so with that fulfillment comes challenges and trying new things and new experiences. And like, I want, you know, I'm not necessarily worried about my life being filled with money or that type of success, right? I'm not very materialistic. I want it to be filled with rich experiences, right? And connections and all this sort of stuff. So over the last handful of years, I've gotten really, really focused on challenging myself of like, let's get out of my comfort zone and do this. Let's do this. Let's do this random thing, right? And again, I think that goes back to what I was saying earlier of like, I think you're spot on in the sense of everything we're saying of like, challenge yourself, bring on new experiences, get out of your comfort zone a little bit. I've been able to take those risks in so many other places.
Now it's time.
But now it's time for the business and the job side to be like, okay, we clearly need to go through a pivot because you haven't been able to grow in this area where effectively as an individual, I feel like I have outgrown what I'm doing in this area.
Well, naturally. I mean, it's like if you were working in a regular job, you know, you would want a promotion at this point. Mm-hmm. You'd be like, all right, boss, like I'm ready for something new. This is boring. Yep. It's just natural. Yep. It's just natural. Like, I wonder if there's bigger companies or bigger things that like maybe subconsciously you're like, whoa, like they have an internal team. They don't need me. Like maybe there's some lies you're telling yourself, but there could be a lot of opportunity. I mean, Columbus has so many big businesses.
Yes.
So and that's, rather than having 10 little guys where you're having stupid conversations, maybe there's a big guy that you can consult for and you're having brilliant conversations that excite you and scare you.
Yes. And that is genuinely do you coach business people for a living? Because you're really spot on with this, huh? No, it's for real though. Like that is exactly where I'm at with it. Is I'm like the things I've been sharing with a lot of peers lately is I'm like my next goal and you know, hey, apologies if any of you are listening to this, you're probably not, is to fire all my clients. I want to get rid of my freelance clients and maybe only the ones that I'm truly like, hey, you know what? I don't care what you pay me. I just like helping you. Cool, I'll keep you around to still flex some of those creative muscles and help out. But that is the thing where I'm like, okay, like I've learned to label myself a creative director because that helps kind of lets me encompass a lot of the things that I do and how I like helping with promotional campaigns and all this sort of stuff. So cool. I want to get rid of the 100 different bosses and I'd like to just help one person, one company really develop themselves and grow.
All right.
And then maybe that's not for the next 5 or 10 years. Maybe that's just for a year. And then we evolve to something else. And it's like, I need that career part to catch up with where I am as a person.
Well, what are you doing to attain that?
And that
have you made a list of like dream companies or dream brands or?
We are, as we speak, in the middle of figuring out that process right now figuring out, okay, we've been acknowledging that these are issues for a while now. We've been acknowledging we want to take some different steps. We've been trying to plant a few seeds here and there. So what does that plan effectively begin to look like? So right now we're time stamping it while we record this. Like I'm in the middle of that process of trying to identify what that pivot really looks like.
Will you let me know?
100%.
I'm going to want to know who you end up working with.
I will keep you updated on like what it ends up looking like.
But you know what's interesting? You've now told me this, and I guarantee there's going to be some conversation that happens in the next few weeks where someone's going to tell me they need your particular set of skills. I'm going to be like, I know someone.
I know.
Because that is how life works.
Yes.
Okay.
And that is the thing is like, it's also, because I have this conversation with a lot of other freelancers as well, is, you know, I think I'm a little more proactively like business oriented than a lot of freelancers that I know where they tend to be just like, hey, I've got the skill of I'm a camera operator. I just want to get hired on someone else's gig to be a camera operator.
Right.
Where I'm very much like, I want to help like lead campaigns and develop a brand and really grow in that. And I would be fine being the person who like enters a company, helps it grow. It's kind of almost the trajectory that you've talked about where it's like entering a company, helping out, it grows, it sells. Cool. What's the next thing? What's the next thing? Like all that sort of stuff. And, you know, where I feel like a lot of freelancers tend to get stuck is in that, like you were saying, like the process of, oh, well, cool, I attained the main thing that I want. I wanted to just work with cameras, or I wanted to just work with whatever. Well, cool, I'm just going to kind of keep doing that, and I'm going to kind of forget, is there anywhere else that I can grow to?
I mean, that's people living in their comfort zone. That's people not wanting to get uncomfortable. And there are some people who are just perfectly happy having a job. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, that's fine.
Yes,
maybe their passion is outside of how they earn money. You know, maybe it's like, I want to operate a camera so that I have time to go rock climbing because that's what I want to do, you know?
Yes.
But I have a hard time like identifying with that life because I just have always been driven by my career. Yeah. And this unrelenting like feeling like I have this purpose here that I'm supposed to fulfill. And, you know, I try every day to just connect with people and help people. And maybe that's my purpose, or maybe it's leading me to my greater purpose. I don't know. But yeah, it's always just somehow been centered around work.
I can say the exact same thing in the sense of I feel like I have been in the last handful of years officially operating based off of like what I feel like my purposes are, or what those whys are, right? And effectively really trying to look at as much as I can being ran through those filters of, okay, let me gain the clarity in what it is I want and don't want, what I'm willing to do and not to do and all this sort of stuff. And again, really, really tying it back to fulfillment. Yeah. Because I will say at the same time, while I can sit and I can complain and be like, oh, I want to grow more, blah, blah, blah. The life and career balance are rather intertwined, and they're balanced relatively well. Like, even though I can identify career has some major problems that I'm annoyed with, they're still relatively balanced because I'm not, taking the jump of like one or the other. I'm very much like, okay, to deal with these, several clients that aren't really giving me much. Well, I'm not going to focus my entire life right now on how I deal with them and how much they're taking from me and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to deal with that as I need to, while also making sure that I'm living a fulfilled life. Yeah. While also making sure that how can I challenge myself? What are new things that I can be doing? What are new experiences I can be taking? So then it's that figurative cup, right? The more we keep it filled, the more we're able, the more capacity we have.
And you don't have to freak out about work because you have all these other outlets.
Yes. So I can sit and be like, well, hey, that client might be annoying, but man, I got to make a really fun podcast episode with Melissa, and that was amazing. And wow, isn't that so great, right? Yeah, it's like getting to balance those things. And that's a gap that I often feel like I chat with a lot of people about, where they're sitting and they're like, okay, like you do all of these things. How do you do them? And how can I do them? And I just kind of tell me about it, right? Like just, again, creative peers. Because again, a lot of people get stuck in, I found my thing. And I get to do that thing as a freelancer, but there's something missing. I'm not really happy. I don't feel like I don't have the energy to actually make my own creation still. I don't feel like I can grow. Yeah. And so much of what I personally lean into sharing with them is, what are you doing to bring yourself joy? Yeah. Like that can be challenging yourself at the gym. That can be getting coffee with people more often just to have fun conversations. Right. That can be making the discipline of making yourself have time on the weekend or whatever to go and do a photo shoot, to go and go rock climbing. Like the value of, and it sounds like such a baseline thing, but I'm sure you have this conversation often. Like it sounds so cliche because it's such a simple, like, duh thing, but it's so easy to overlook because it's such a duh thing, is making sure that you're finding ways to just bring joy into your life will change so much of when the bad, annoying things are happening. You have more capacity to deal with them when you're not running on E.
Well, it does sound simple, but it goes back to what I was saying earlier. I think people have this like laundry list going in their head of like everything that needs to happen and all of their goals. And it can just be so overwhelming that you shut down and turn on Netflix for 3 hours, right? Like, just get it all down on paper, and then just pick one thing, just one, because action begets action. You know, like whenever I feel stuck, I'm like, okay, how do I just get in movement? How do I just like put on my shoes and walk around the block? Like just break it somehow. It could be so small, and you could pat yourself on the back for that, because that can be a lot sometimes. But overcomplicating things and massive to-do lists and massive expectations will kill the simplicity of finding joy. You know, I just encourage people to just make one little promise and then just stack on it.
What do you feel like out of all of the different entrepreneurs and stuff that you've coached for however long it's been, what do you feel like the number one most prominent thing that you feel like pops up amongst many of them? Has there been a reoccurring theme? You're like, man, I keep identifying this is the thing that everybody gets caught up in. Like,
I mentioned it earlier. I mean, granted, there's a ton that we talk about as I coach people, but the number one thing is money. Yeah. It's just numbers. I'll say numbers, maybe not money, because tracking what is happening in your business so that you can celebrate, or you can be honest with yourself about what's not working. You know, it's so crucial. And I think we're just so caught up in the doing that we like avoid the scary. It's like avoiding checking your bank account because you're like, oh God, I don't know what's in there. But it can be just as empowering as, you know, I mean, maybe what you find in there is negative, but maybe it's not. You know, it's always that, I always find, and I say always, that when we address the numbers head on and look at them honestly, it's always like, oh, well, it wasn't as bad or as hard as I thought. It's like that thing you keep putting off. And when you do it, you're like, why were they putting that off for so long? That's crazy. But that is a reoccurring theme. I think that a lot of entrepreneurs are white knuckling through life. And it's so crucial to look at the numbers so that you can determine where you want to go next. You can fix what's broken. You can celebrate what's working. You can maybe give yourself a day off. You know, it's just something that so many avoid.
Do you think it's, again, this is another one of those like kind of silly questions where I'm like, I think I know the answer, but I'm just going to ask a very basic question and let you take it. Do you think it's possible, or how possible it is, for like entrepreneurs to actually slow down and become more present? And I also ask that from the standpoint of that's almost one of the things I feel like gets in the way of a lot of the growth that I'm even individually talking about as someone who's a part of a lot of business owners' teams, is I'm sitting and I'm like, if we could just slow down and maybe be a little bit more proactive of what we want to do with our creative direction, what we want to do with our plans and our goals, and not just the cycle's up and running, you're posting for me, you're doing whatever, we're fine. And then when I bring up, hey, let's think about a campaign like this. Could we plan for this proactively? Could we blah, blah, blah? It's always just sort of like a, yeah, maybe, I don't know. And then again, the white knuckling moving forward. Do you think it's possible for entrepreneurs to be able to slow down and become more present?
Absolutely. I mean, I think I see it all the time. And I think it comes from a shared quality a lot of us have of, you know, this feeling of not enoughness. You know, if we're not Elon Musk, our business is not crushing it. I mean, the mere fact that we pay for our own lives and nobody signs our paycheck, like, you won, baby. You won. You know, that to me, like, I just wake up every day so grateful that I created this life. And a lot of entrepreneurs are, you know, we see what we see on social media, the highlight reel of everyone who's killing it on their private jet, posting every 10 seconds, making all this money, all this residual income, all these multiple income streams. Listen, they're spending $1 million to make $500,000. Let's be real. I digress. So I think it is very hard for entrepreneurs to be present when a lot of what is going on in our head is that we need to do more, be more, grow faster. We should be further along than we are. And when I have the privilege of working with someone who's willing to say, I can't go on like this, that's usually when we can say, all right, like how do you want your life to look? What does success look like to you? You've heard that time and time again, I'm sure. You know, can we agree that if you had the time to pick your kids up from school today, you're winning? You know, can we agree that You have what you need. All your bills are paid. Can we agree that you're winning? Okay. Now, what's the next step? What do I keep saying? What is the next step you can take to incrementally grow personally and professionally? We don't have to do all the things. If we try to be everything to everyone, we're gonna be nothing to nobody. Okay? So when I peel it all away, what matters? I just had this conversation yesterday with a team I'm on. So I've actually stopped seeing as many one-on-one clients and stepped into being more of a fractional COO for a business that I am very excited about. And so I get to be on this team with the chief culinary officer, CEO, and myself, and stepping back with them and eliminating all the noise and saying, no. What are the two numbers? What are the two metrics each of us are going to live and die by? Like, that is how I've been able to get them to erase all the noise and be present, to your earlier question. What are the two numbers that each of us in this room are going to agree on that are ours? These are my two, these are your two, these are your twos. It's how we define it. How often are we going to look at it? How are we going to brainstorm against that number when it's good or bad? I'm giving everybody in this room permission to do nothing if it doesn't align to those two numbers you're responsible for. And this is why I love numbers so much, because it takes the emotion out of it. Allowing them to say, whoa, there are a million voices in my head. Everything is telling me I'm not succeeding. Actually, let me just look at my two numbers. Are they good or bad this week? What can I do to make them better? That's all you have to do. Mm-hmm. I totally went off on a tangent again.
No, it's incredible. And you also, you opened the door to the next question that I wanted to ask. And you also maybe kind of already answered it, but I'm still going to toss it your way. What do you share with the entrepreneur who is like, I can't do this anymore? That I am feeling like I don't know what to do. I don't know if I can keep doing this business. I've tried so hard. I feel like I've tried the options.
Yeah.
I want it to work, but I just don't know. Have you had those interactions? I'm sure you have. What do you share with the entrepreneur who is like, I don't know if I should keep doing this business. I don't know if I should keep doing this.
I usually tell them to take a vacation. I need you to take 2 or 3 weeks, put your out of office on, let your clients know you're not going to be available. I need you to go. You are burnt out. Mm-hmm. You are burnt out. And when you come back, we're going to talk logistics, and that's it. And those logistics are, how are we going to make sure that you can pay your rent and pay for your life? That's it. That's all we have to figure out. And we'll build from there. How you're going to make that money? I don't care if you DoorDash. I don't care. We're going to I need you to go away for 2 weeks, come back to me with your absolute budget for your life. What money do we have to cover? Let's be responsible. That's it. If you need permission from someone, I'm giving it to you. Mm-hmm. Take some time off. Come back with a realistic, minimalistic budget of what you can live on, and we'll take it from there. And usually they come back and they're like, oh, I was burnt out. I needed a vacation.
Yeah.
And I thought about how to pay my bills, and this is the best way to pay my bills. And maybe I'll pivot a little bit this way or a little bit that way, but I generally find people are headed that direction when they try to do too much. They want to alter their product or add this different revenue stream or do that. And it's like, whoa. All of this is out of fear. Get your core product right. Probably charge a little more than you're charging. Figure out, if you can't get people to pay what you want them to pay for it, get it so right that you have no problem asking them what you're worth. And then we can start adding stuff. But a lot of times I can see the burnout about to happen when you start adding everything, when you're trying to do all the things, add all the revenue streams, do everything. You throw it against the wall and see what sticks. Burnout's coming.
Yeah.
The voices are going crazy in your head.
Did you feel relatively clear enough with Haven at the beginning that were you able to avoid those burnout periods where you're like, oh my God, I love doing this, but
yeah,
dang it, it's so much to handle. Did you ever have that moment or?
For sure.
Okay.
For sure. I have grown tremendously as a person through this experience. Being that my children were both under 2 when I opened was huge. My business partner also went through her own personal struggles throughout the first several years of our business. So it was quite a few years where everything just kind of felt like, crazy. And I just had to have an anchor. I just had to know, what do we have to cover in our bills every month? What do I need to get paid every month? What does Danielle need to get paid every month? Did we cover that? Okay. Like, as long as we could do that every month, I felt like that was my white knuckle. That was like, okay, did we make our numbers? Did we make our numbers? I just had to have like one North Star. And then we were able to bring on a team member who has been the most amazing thing that happened to our business, was bringing on a community manager, bringing on like a third person, a third voice in the room. She is so creative and so wonderful, and everyone loves her. I don't know how we got so lucky. She has been a wonderful breath of fresh air, because for so long it was just our two voices. And now to have a third perspective really just kind of like brings some peace. Mm-hmm. Someone else is thinking about all the things that need to get done, and it leaves me room to really be strategic about our numbers and lean into my gift. It gives Danielle time to be strategic about our marketing and lean into her gift. It leaves space for Jenna to manage all of the ins and outs of the day-to-day of the spaces, which she seems to love. So yes, I definitely had periods of time that I would never want to go back to, but it made me stronger. It showed me what I was capable of. It showed me that I could eliminate the noise and just focus on what is important. I mean, we survived COVID and we have a physical space. Mm-hmm. And that is saying something.
Yeah. 100%,
you know?
Yes.
So I'll always bet on me after all that. Like, yeah. It sucked and it was hard to get through, but I get to look at those experiences and say, what is this preparing me for? And I can look back and say, like, wow, like the peace I feel right now, that was worth it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're talking about, surviving something like COVID,
mm-hmm.
getting through those moments of burnout. I want to go back a little bit to like even just starting it up, like, and this is just genuine curiosity, like how does one go about starting up a co-working space? Like, you found the physical space, you had the idea, you're like, it's time to bet on myself.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work? Was it just like, do you know 10 people? I know 10 people. Let's ask them if they need a co-working space. Let's start advertising it. Like, walk me through what that process is like.
So due to the sale of my company, where I said, peace out, I was in a position to purchase a building. Like, let me not, that's not everyone's situation. Mm-hmm. So we had a good foundation.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh no, we need to like renovate this thing and fill this thing. And like, how do we go about it? Smart and staggered, and how do we build on it? There was a lot of imposter syndrome in the beginning because our competitors have a lot of money. A lot of them are big developers that have really fancy spaces. And it was really scary, but we said, okay, there's definitely a market that's not being served here. Let's figure out who that is. And I mentioned briefly that when Danielle pitched this idea, it was co-working with childcare. Mm-hmm. So automatically our niche was different. We were targeting work from home professionals that had children at home. They needed to put somewhere so they could get some work done. So cue amazing Ashley Nixon, who was able to help us with our beautiful website because she and I had in common a child at daycare. Then we decided, with the little bit of money that we had, that we were going to throw it into market research. So we hired two friends who, at the time, spending $3,000 on market research was like, oh my God. But they did focus groups and surveys, and they were able to really help us hone in on our avatar and who we were talking to. Danielle is a really great writer and a really great marketer. And, she had been doing that work for other companies that were undervaluing her talent forever. And it was just like, I don't want to do that. Like, go do. And she did a great job of getting us up on Facebook. And I went in and got on the mommy groups. And, we launched our Instagram. If you looked at our earliest Instagram posts, oh my word, they were terrible. I thought that I needed to do it because that's how I could contribute. It took about a year for me to be like, Danielle, I don't know what I'm doing. Please take it over, please. Maybe it was like 2 years before. I was kind of stubborn. But we really grassroots this thing. We didn't put $1 into advertising for our first 4 years. Not $1. Like, no ad spend. Every single member walked through our doors based on an event we threw, a personal conversation that we had online with them. free day passes that we offered people, specials. I mean, we did everything we could think to just get people to walk through the space.
Yeah.
Just get your eyes on it. Just feel it in here. Just meet us. And we were, through word of mouth, we were able to build the community we needed. And then we were able to open our second space. On those tailwinds, we were able to open our second space January of 2020.
Beautiful. Look, hey, good timing. That was a good year, I heard.
I know.
I think it's good year. Good year.
Yeah. So from 18 to 20, we were operating UA, and then we were ready to open our downtown location, and really have only started investing in advertising and trying to work through that beast probably the last 6 months.
Okay.
And still, we find that most of our customers, because of who our avatar is, because of the way we built our community, most of it is happening through word of mouth. Mm-hmm. Most of it is referrals. Most of it is, oh, I work at this place, come to work with me today. Or,
How
sort of thing.
how does a co-working space, especially one that opens up a second location at the beginning of a year like 2020,
Yeah.
how did you make it through that year?
I am frugal and just hell-bent on cash on hand and hell-bent on having 3 months in reserves at all times. 6 months is really now our standard. But I always want to make sure if not another dollar came through, we could still keep our promises.
Yeah.
Because I'm big on keeping promises.
That's great. That is. Is there anything major you feel like we haven't gotten to before I start to kind of like wrap us up? You're like, dude, I know we've been talking about a lot of stuff, but like this part of my story or this thing, if I walk out of here and I don't talk about this thing, like it'll be a waste. Like,
I mean, I think I've alluded to it in parts, but if I could encourage anybody listening that, you have it in you, and no matter what you want to do, like it's going to be hard, but that's kind of the fun part. Like failing is okay. You can never lose. Like either you're going to fail and learn or you're going to win and learn. Like you're going to evolve as a person. And I wish I could, I hope that I am instilling this stupid self-confidence in my children, in the people around me, in anyone that I get to come across, that like, just bet on you. Life is too short.
Mm-hmm. If I were to ask you what you feel like your why is, do you have an answer?
Yes.
What is it?
I play a lot of roles. One of my favorite is Big Sister. I have 2 younger sisters who are just the light of my life. And I feel like there's a lot of people out there who need a good big sister, who need someone who's going to give it to them straight. Look, this is what you need to work on, but this is why you're awesome. And I get to have conversations like that every day. I'm drawn to strangers. I just want to be that voice amidst all the noise saying, no, those are all lies. Like, you got this. And if I can impact one person that way, I feel like that's my purpose.
I have 2 final questions for you.
Yeah.
One's a deep thinker. One's real simple, surface level. We'll get to that one first. So right now, let's say there's somebody who's wanting to start a business. Mm-hmm. They're listening to this. And they're like, oh, cool conversation, blah, blah, blah. What is and this can be a surface level or is wherever you want to take it, but like general question of what's your main tips and advice to somebody who's like wanting to take that bet on themselves, start a business and go in on their idea?
I really believe in this idea of side hustling it until you've proven it. Quitting your job and being like, screw you guys. I was lucky. I had an employment contract, so I was able to take that leap. But most people, you want to prove your idea. And if you really mean it and you really have the discipline and you're really able to keep promises to yourself, you're going to do it at night, on the weekends, whenever you have to prove your concept. And it is okay, especially in this day and age, to keep your job, let this build up, even tell your job, hey, I might need to wind down while you build this up. There is just no shame in that game. Do it on the side. Prove to yourself that you have the discipline, that you have a concept, that you can make the money you need to sustain your life. And if not, cool, try another idea. And you haven't lost your job over it. You can still pay your bills. Mm-hmm. Yes, so yes. I would side hustle it as your market research.
I feel like that action point is always the biggest thing. And again, it's a cliche that people probably hear it all the time of like, do the work, take the action, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, for some reason, that is the hardest thing. Yeah. Again, we were talking about that earlier before we even rolled, is like, it's very fun and very easy to have an idea and to have a want to do a thing. But taking action in some way is always what stops people.
I mean, that's everything. It's every major business, every business. Strategy's not the problem. Ideas aren't the problem. Execution is the problem.
Yeah. And that is the part that I'm always like, I feel like the most, one, try to be disciplined for myself of like, all right, what actions do I need to take here? And what are those small steps that I can just take to get started? And that's always where I go with other people too, is when I'm talking with them and they're like, oh, I want to do this idea and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, we got our dream, right? Okay, how can we break that dream down into a goal? Then how can we take that goal and then reverse engineer it into a plan? What are those steps to then that plan? And then everything you were saying earlier of like, okay, what's that step one? We accomplish it, that's a win.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if we're not at the $1 billion company idea or not. We got this win, we got that win, whether it's a side hustle, whether that's whatever.
Yeah.
So that action piece is gigantic.
And celebrate the action.
Yes.
Celebrate it.
Yes. Celebrating the wins along the way. Like, I feel like that's a part of that enjoy the process thing that everybody says all the time.
For me,
right?
it's when I cross off one of those 3 things, I do a little dance.
Yep.
Yes, I did it.
I had a similar thought process a few years ago when I tried to figure something out to not beat myself up for, because for a while I was relatively, I'm not going to say caught up, but really subscribed to like the hustle and grind culture, where I was like, because I'm a night owl naturally, so I'm like, I'm just going to do everything all the time. Let's go. I still like doing everything all the time, but with a far clearer plan and a far better boundaries.
Yeah.
But, I would often be that person who would be like, I got 5 things on my to-do list. I better knock all 5 of them off or I'm a failure. Yeah. And for me, I sort of started thinking of this like 3 of 5 method, where I'm like, and it could be 2 of 5, it can sometimes be 1 of 5 for whatever works for that person. But for me, something similar that I started to think myself through was like, let's say I have 5 things on my to-do list. In that day, maybe I only get 3 of them done. What I would normally do, and what I would talk to a lot of people who would do, is they would say, I didn't get 5 done. I'm a failure. And instead, looking at it as like, okay, we didn't get that 5 done. Let's make sure we can still get those other 2 done when we can. But let's celebrate the fact that we got the 3 that we did. Because maybe doing that 3 took more time or energy than what we thought it was going to, and we didn't have even the time or the energy to get to all 5.
Right. Celebrate, though.
Celebrate.
Can I offer another point?
Yes.
So being that I worked for 2 tech startups, something that I loved, I got to work with developers, and they're some of the most interesting, brilliant people. They're very black and white. And I love the system of, so they get to deal with lists and lists and lists of all the things that the users want, all the bugs that need to be fixed, all the things that need to be done. And they get to group them into, okay, these are kind of all alike. And, they call them cards, right? So there's these cards. And then they weight them. Like some of them will take 2 points to complete. Some of them will take 4 points to complete. Some of them will take 5 points to complete because they're a meaty project. And I used to love sitting in these meetings where they would have somebody facilitating, okay, how many points do you have available this week? Oh, you have 5? Okay, which cards can we pull for you to do? And the very idea that in a business setting, there was a conversation about what is your capacity? How can you commit based on your capacity? And there was respect for that. And room given for like a passion project. Like, I can give 5 points to that because I'm toying around with this other thing. Like, I just found it to be so cool. And I'm not a developer by any means, but I try and run cards in my head.
That's cool.
Like, I have all these things on my to-do list, and this one is 5 points. That one's going to like take me a lot. So if I slot that in for this day, pretty much the only other thing getting done is I promise myself I'm going to take a walk and maybe I'll do the dishes. Because that's like all I can handle. But like, I've got a couple ones here. I could probably knock those 3 out tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it was just a really cool experience being exposed to developers and how they take this huge list that seems insurmountable and make it actionable.
That's so cool.
So if that's like a visual way for people to think about it, I mean, Trello is a great way to do it. You can put all your stuff there and give it points if you want, and put it in swim lanes and drag it over to what's getting done today. Like if you want to make it fun, like a game.
That is a very fun way to think about that. So you figure out how many. What do you base your points off of? Is like 10 or something? What
I mean, you can do whatever you want, but like I would just say, like, how much time is this going to take you? Yep. If it's like a half-hour thing, it's a 0.5. If it's an hour, it's a 1. If it's a 2 hour, 2. Make it simple. That's but so fun. As I work with different business owners, and I know their personalities, I get to learn like who is just like a paper and pen kind of person, and who needs like a game, who needs a challenge because they're a type A and they need to win. Well, I give them the game. I give them the Trello board. Yeah. And we do cards and points.
That's so fun. Melissa, I have one final question for you.
Okay.
And then we will call this a podcast and wrap things up.
Okay.
So every episode I end with the same question. So now it's your turn.
Okay.
So we've been talking, we've talked so much of story, and we've been talking a lot of advice in here for business owners and people and all this sort of stuff. One final time for your advice cap to pop on of some sort. So right now, I want you to pretend like everyone in the world is listening to you talk. So some pressure might be on.
Yeah, okay.
But not, not all the pressure, right? It's just everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody in the world can hear you speak right now. You got a live mic. You get this moment to share one thing with every single person everywhere. What is it that you're telling them? And what would you really, really more than anything want everyone to hear?
Pay attention to what you're telling yourself in your head. Audit the lies and focus on loving yourself.
This was such a fun conversation.
Thank you. I thought this was great.
I cannot thank you enough. Yeah, I hope this doesn't feel like you were like, man, I can't believe I agreed to do this guy's podcast.
No, it was great. I feel like I maybe went on a few tangents, but you can edit those.
They are. I promise you. Please don't be upset if I don't edit them down because I think they were all great. Okay. Like I promise you, this was a very, very fun conversation.
Oh, good.
I am so stoked we got to make this happen.
Yeah, me too.
Before we officially tell everybody goodbye, do you want them to come find Haven or
of
anything
course.
that you do, or remind them that CrossFit's cool? Like,
yes.
The final things you would want anybody to go check out. Where can they find Haven, you, anything like that?
Yeah. Okay, a couple plugs. First, anybody who's working from home and feeling isolated, please come see us. I mean, that's what we're there for. We have an awesome community of entrepreneurs who they understand what you're going through. They understand you got to get some stuff done, but it's nice to say hi to someone and have a cup of coffee. So anytime, first day's free, come see us. You can find us online, obviously, or just email me, Melissa, MELISSA, at havencolumbus.com. Also, if CrossFit has been speaking to you, you are also welcome to come with me. You can come with me. I would be so stoked to bring you to CrossFit that I go to in Hilliard. So 11th Element CrossFit. I know Graham, the owner, who, by the way, won the CrossFit Games in 2010. He's the owner.
That's wild.
He's amazing. He runs an amazing gym, and the community is unmatched. So if you are scared to do it, I am your girl. Come with me. I will help you. I promise you will love it. Even if you don't love it, I'll be right there with you. So again, reach out, Melissa at havencolumbus.com. I'll be there with you. And then finally, I'm obsessed with this new company I'm working with, Lux and Lemons. They're a meal prep delivery company. So if you're feeling scattered and you want someone else, you want to outsource your meals, check them out.
I love it. Melissa, This was so much fun.
Thanks.
Thank you so very much for doing this. I'm so happy that we made this happen.
I'm really happy that you reached out to me. At first, I was like, is this real? Oh, no, this is real. Okay, let's do this.